Hey everybody, welcome to your readings for the week. These are the readings for the week ending June 10th. I just ate, and for some reason doing that made it difficult for my mouth to move to make words. Very strange is what it is. Fun stuff going on. Gonna definitely impact a few of you on this list for sure. We'll just jump right in there and get started as we always do with Darcy. Once again, I'm unprepared. Sorry about that. I definitely should be more prepared. I'm prepared for you though. We continue to have Jupiter in that T-square with Pluto as well as Mars, although Mars is moving out of that T-square this week, but Venus is coming in right behind it. So it's not actually going anywhere. It's going to continue to be a pretty big challenge. Luckily, there's nothing in Scorpio, so it's not as big as it was last week. So that is good. Okay, we can at least take comfort from that, I suppose. Jupiter continues to be all about expansion in your long-term goals. Mars continues to be in that space where we're releasing anger from our trauma closet. That's awesome. That is going to move out of this aspect, though. Venus is not focused on inner trauma, thankfully. It's focused on your support system, and Pluto is focused on those you love. So this to me is one of those classic cases where you have specific things that you want to do. You have goals. You have the people that normally are there to be supportive of you. They don't know what the hell you're doing. They think it's absolutely crazy. They're not supporting you. And that can feel really well, it kind of takes the wind out of your sails a little bit, and makes you feel like maybe you shouldn't be focused on these goals. If everybody thinks it's crazy, well, not everybody's going to understand why you're doing what you're doing. Okay. Take it from me, a little over 10 years ago, I decided to learn how to talk to dead people. And my biggest fear was that everybody that I knew that was important to me was going to think that I was crazy. And well, they kind of did, but it didn't change the relationship at all, if that makes sense. In some cases, it did improve the relationships. Um, I had to work a little bit harder through some of those relationships. My husband specifically, in the beginning, he thought I was literally nuts. Over time, he started to not just accept that I knew what I was doing and that I was doing it, but promoting me as the person that knows what to do with your dead people. So it made a complete 180 change. And I was really concerned that it would affect our relationship like a lot. And luckily for me, it didn't. There's other aspects playing into this, specifically with Mercury, because Mercury also continues to be in Taurus in a pretty close conjunction with Uranus. And by the way, Uranus is really not interacting with a lot of planets at all, which is kind of helpful. But Mercury's interaction is very helpful because Mercury is in a grand sextile with Neptune, which is focused on relationships, as well as Pluto. So this basically is an aspect that counteracts this challenge. It says you can't find support in the people that you're specifically looking at that, normally are supportive, then look elsewhere for that support. I'm willing to bet that you know a lot of people. I'm willing to bet that you have a pretty big support system. A lot of times when we find ourselves feeling that nobody supports us, it's not because nobody's supporting us. It's because the person standing in front of us isn't supporting us. So if you can't get support from the people that you think you should be supporting you, and I'm not saying that they don't have to, I'm just saying there's always those instances we come across where it feels like nobody supports us at all. And that's not necessarily the case. That's the negative emotional way that we're looking at it. And if you don't allow that to trip you up, you'll see that you have all the support that you need to get through this, if that makes sense. So pretty big challenge, but a lot of things lined up to help you through that challenge, if that makes sense. And I feel like in terms of your long-term goals, this is one of those instances where maybe in the past you didn't follow through. This one you're definitely going to be following through with, even if it seems like a rough road to get there. That doesn't matter. The moon actually plays into this big challenge Tuesday and Wednesday, or Tuesday and Wednesday. So it moves into conjunction with Pluto and adds an emotional layer to this challenge. So don't get swept away with the emotion. It is what it is. The feelings are there to help you understand the situation, not to stop you from doing what you need to do, if that makes sense. The other thing that, pardon me, the other thing that keeps coming up around you is I keep seeing something with your truck, and I'm not sure if it's regular maintenance that needs to happen, or if it's something that's been a problem and it's become a bigger problem. I know you don't have a lot of time to deal with that, but I think it needs to be dealt with sooner rather than later. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's just going to stop working if you don't, or become potentially dangerous, if that makes sense. It could be something as small as the tires needing to be replaced, which can be very dangerous if you don't take care of that, obviously. The last thing that I'm being shown for you is a puppy. I don't know if this is your puppy or somebody else's puppy. There is a very strong connection between you and this dog. I don't really know what it is. I don't really know why it is. I sort of maybe get this feeling that personality-wise is very similar to an animal that you had, and so it almost feels like that animal reincarnated in some way. And I don't see this as an animal that you're only going to see one time and that's it. And it lives with somebody in close proximity. We'll put it that way. I think eventually, though, it might wind up being your dog, just because of the closeness that the two of you have. It seems like the dog adores you just as much as you adore it, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you. Puppy love is always nice, by the way. Moving on to Kendra. I just got a message from you, actually looking forward to talking next week because things are getting interesting at work. Not surprising with the way the planets are lining up right now. And specifically, I feel like these things that are happening at work, one way that they're playing out is I fear that they might be getting in the way of your plans, if that makes sense. In terms of your own career goals. It's almost like somebody's deliberately trying to take up your time so you can't focus on what you want to focus on, if that makes sense. And the way that the planets are lining up, no support in your long-term goals, it totally makes sense. However, Mercury is still in Taurus as well, and Mercury's grand sextile with Pluto, which is very much a part of this big challenge here, as well as Neptune, sort of opens up your vision to remind you of the tremendous support system that you really have. So if you're not getting support at home, if you're not getting support at work, you have support in many other places, of course. So, look to those places rather than trying to squeeze support out of somebody that's just can't be supportive, if that makes sense. Excuse me. I'm feeling like I need to clear my throat a lot also. Which sort of brings up a feeling of a blockage in this chakra right here for you, almost like there's things that are happening and there's nothing you can do to say, there's nothing you can say about it, there's nothing you can do about it, you can't prevent it. It's like a it's like a runaway horse and buggy, you know, somebody needs to stop it or it's going to be a problem. And unfortunately, I don't think you can stop this runaway buggy. I think the only thing that you can really do is get out of the way and, you know, hope nobody gets hurt in the process. Make sure your people don't get hurt. That's all you really can do. It feels like you're watching somebody go in a direction that you know is destructive and you have no power to stop them. And I do not see this happening in your family unit in terms of your husband and your children. It could be extended family that this is taking place, could be a friend of yours or somebody that you know. It could be at work also, so it could be one of the interesting things that are coming up around work. So honestly, yes, there's a possibility that somebody could rope you into this as being responsible, but I don't see this as being your responsibility, and I don't see that there is anything that you can do to prevent it. So yeah, best thing to do is just get out of the way and hope for the best. I feel like this is this person's lesson, and while it may affect you, which is why you want to steer it so that it doesn't cause too much of a problem, there is really no way to stop it. So rather than trying to control it, get out of the way and, you know, help to pick up the pieces if that's your job, and or don't if it's not, you know. The other thing that I'm being shown for you this week is well, I do want to say this this T square that Jupiter is in with now Venus. Mars plays a part in it at the beginning of the week, but moves out of it and Venus moves in, and Pluto is really going to come to a head about Tuesday, Wednesday, because the moon moves into conjunction with Pluto. So things are going to get big and emotional and frustrating. Chances are that's when it's going to happen, like right in the middle of the week. But I also am being shown that there is things sort of calm down in that area towards the end of the week. So it gives you some time, or you're taking some time, even if it's a little extra time, to just kind of get back to acclimating to your space, to making your plans. I feel like it's really important this week when you're at work, you're focused at work. When you're at home, you're focused on the home, and you're not trying to be toggled back and forth between the two. I want to say that's the old California mentality that you got to leave in California, because this is what's better for you energetically. You won't feel like you're being pulled in a million different directions all the time, like maybe you did before, if that makes sense. So putting that practice into play will really help with that. So that's what I have for you this week. Moving on to Jeannette, we continue to have the sun in Gemini. We continue to have Juno in Gemini. And right at the beginning of the week, actually on Sunday, we have the latter part of the full moon, which means the moon is still in opposition with the sun. The moon's focus is on the home. The sun's focus is on career. I kind of feel like this is playing out for you in a couple of different ways. One, you want to work from home. Who wouldn't, right? Actually, I don't think I would choose to after doing it for a very long time, because you have to really be motivated in order to get it done. And you being a Gemini, that means there's a million distractions at home that can make that difficult. So you have to be really strict on your scheduling, you know, what that you staying focused on your work consistently. but still having the freedom to make your own hours, kind of a thing. You just got to be, you got to motivate yourself to do it. There's no other way for me to say it. It took me a long time to realize that, and I'm still working on continuing to do that daily, if that makes sense, because there is nobody breathing over my shoulder to tell me to get it done. So so that may be a little bit of a challenge, especially if somebody around you doesn't quite understand what you want, specifically because at the beginning of the week, the moon is also in a square with Saturn for the first few days. Saturn is all about your responsibilities to your relationship. So with that being said, well, first of all, let me just put it this way. I know Mario is pretty happy with you doing whatever makes you happy. I think that he has concerns about, finances and whether or not that's going to work out for you guys. So sitting down and having a discussion about that is always a good thing. An argument, of course, is really not going to help, and you're arguing with a Taurus, so they just get stubborn, when faced with an argument. It's just kind of who they are, what they do. So having a discussion is better, and being open to what his concerns are so that you can help eliminate those concerns. Just make sure that whatever it is that you want to do, you come prepared to that meeting, you come prepared to that discussion so that you can answer his questions and put him at ease in terms of what he wants to do. I also feel like this may have something to do with decisions that you've been waiting on, in terms of money coming in, that it may seem for a minute that that's not going to happen, and then things sort of rectify themselves, and it turns out that absolutely it is going to happen. So don't freak out, okay, just because somebody makes a little mistake, because that happens all the time, if that makes sense. The other thing that I'm the other thing I'm picking up, I also feel like, in a way, even though your kids don't live anywhere near where you live, part of the struggle with working outside of the home is not being 100% available every time one of your kids needs you. Now, I know that what you want to do is to be able to drop everything whenever you can play with your grandbabies, and I don't blame you for that, right? What I am concerned about is that you put your life on hold to wait for them to need something. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm not saying you're doing that. I am saying that you don't want to use them as an excuse to not do something that you need to do, okay? Because you will be able to work it out. You're always able to work it out. So it's kind of unfair to use them as an excuse. That's all I'm saying about that. So that's what I have for you this week. Moving on to Connie, I believe. Yes. Okay, so let's talk about the little bit of a mess in Leo. Just got a text from you, by the way, as well. Not surprising that you're going through what you're going through because of the way the planets are lined up, and very specifically because Mars has moved into Leo by the right at the beginning of the week on Monday. Venus is also moving into Leo. So we've had this big challenge, which Mars is moving out of, but Venus is moving into, because Venus is like right hot on Mars's heels. So we're going to have a conjunction between the two coming up here pretty soon as well. Not this week, probably happening next week. Venus also moves pretty quickly. So the good news is that even though she's going to be in there influencing your sign, and Mars is going to continue that influence of release of old anger, we're cleaning out that trauma closet. While that's not going away right away, it will get a little bit easier, if that makes sense, in the next couple of weeks. This week, on the other hand, it's just a big old silly mess, as my oldest son says, but not entirely, okay? This challenge, Venus's focus is on your support system in opposition with Pluto, which is focused on those you love. Both planets squared with Jupiter, which is all about your long-term goals. Now, first of all, we've discussed your family, the Brussels sprouts, getting in the way in many different ways of your goals. Or you even being able to make any goals, because you know that the minute you start focusing on something that's important to you, something is going to come up. It almost always does, right? So this is a very clear indicator of that challenge that you've actually had most of your life, and it's just becoming really prevalent now. I think in some cases there is a release of anger around this, from how they have held you back in the past. But also, Venus is in a grand sextile with Neptune and Mercury. And Mercury is also focused on your long-term goals. Neptune is focused on your relationship. So in terms of a support system, I know that's not a word we use very often because it feels many times like you don't really have a support system, but you do. You have your spirit support system, of course. You do have a few people, actual living people there to support you. Hello. I'm just sitting over here invisible. No, I'm just kidding. You do have a few living people there to support you. And I feel like the biggest challenge here is to focus less on the people that don't and focus more on the people that do. And when you focus more on the people that do, you actually get more done than when you're focused on the support that you don't have, if that makes sense. So it's like the two aspects almost counterbalance each other in a way that's almost perfect, if that makes sense. The other thing that I'm being shown is you just texted me that your dad is in the emergency room, which I don't see him continuing to be in the emergency room this week. In fact, I feel that he's going to come out of that, and things will smooth over just a little bit in that regard in terms of his health. This may be something that this, to me, what Frankie is saying is that this is something that's it's a concern, but it's not like a concern of something major that's going to take place right now. I think it's something that they're going to have to keep an eye on, that could get worse later on, but they sort of have it handled right now, if that makes sense. I don't know any other way to say that. And that would make more sense. I also see that it's possible that Kylan is going to spend a little bit longer time with you, maybe into next week, which would be this week, the recording for this week. It's possible that he's actually going to extend that out, add a few more days to his visit because of what's going on, which isn't really a bad thing. So in any case, that is what I have for you, Connie. I am going to move on to Jenny. So yeah, you know, you guys just really haven't had a lot of planets in your sign, and so you've been really lucky. A lot of the big giant bullshit that's been taking place, you've either kind of sort of dipped your toe in a little bit or just really not been a part of it, and your time has run out. Okay, it's just all there is to it. Your time has run out. That same big T-square challenge that Mars was in with Pluto and Jupiter still continues this week, although Mars is moving out of it. But Venus is right behind him. So where Mars leaves, Venus starts basically and takes up that part in that challenge. And we do have Venus moving into your sign this week specifically. The challenge really is Pluto's focus is on those you love. Venus's focus is on your support system, and Jupiter's focus is on your long-term goals. So this is one of those classic challenges where you have specific goals, and it just seems like nobody is supporting you on that. Now, I learned very recently, actually didn't learn this very recently. I had known it a long time, but it was one of those instances where I saw it played out again very recently when my husband left his job and moved on to another job. And the people that he worked with are not supportive of that. They didn't go, hey, way to go. Hey, that's awesome. You're moving up in your field. That's great. Of course they didn't do that. It's been more of like, you're really putting us in a tough spot, and it has nothing to do with him. It has everything to do with themselves. And I feel like the reason why I'm basically going through this whole story is because I feel like this has something to do with what you're going through now as well. I feel like it's not that you're not supported. It's that people are more concerned about what they need and less concerned about what's best for you, if that makes sense. So this could play out in terms of your second job that you've picked up, but you're not spending as much time in the office, focused on the office as you were before. This also could play out in terms of you have financial goals or career goals, and your girls are not on board. I mean, they're on board, and then you're not there, and then so you're kind of sort of put in the position of them sort of making you feel like you're ignoring them completely and not doing your job as a mom. And that's not something that I feel they would do all the time. I feel like there's a specific reason why this is taking place. Like they really need you right now, and you're just unfortunately not there. And rather than having the maturity, which young people don't, having the maturity of understanding that and waiting, they kind of, well, you're never there for me anymore, when it was only the one time. So bottom line here is, I want to say that around Tuesday and Wednesday, this becomes really emotional with the moon being in conjunction with Pluto. And that's, if the big trigger thing is going to happen, chances are that's when it's going to happen. And you don't want to go to that emotional place. You don't want to allow somebody to put you in that guilt space. Okay. Even if it's your kid, the bottom line is that you're always there for your kids. But you have to earn a living at the same time. So normally they understand it. It's just that she's very emotional right now. And rather than taking that personally as Jenny screwing up, take it for what it is. She's emotionally lashing out, and, give her space to do that. And then let her know later on that was inappropriate to do, and that she should not be doing that to people on a regular basis. It's just not okay. It is narcissistic behavior, but I think that we all do it to a certain extent, once we're in that emotional space. The good news is Venus's grand sextile with Neptune and Mercury. Mercury is also focused on long-term goals, and Neptune is focused on relationships. So while you're doing something and it's like, yay, and it feels like nobody's supporting you in that, look to others to celebrate with, if that makes sense. So if you totally rocked it at work and nobody else seems to be all, celebrating with you, find somebody that's gonna celebrate with you. Which I know you know quite a few of those people as well. So we're counteracting it, I think that most human beings, the issue, I don't want to say the issue with most human beings, but the issue that most human beings go through is that they do something, They want to celebrate, they go and share, and the person that they share with does not give it the amount of excitement that you expect. And we automatically just go to, okay, I'm not important, right? I don't do that. I go to a person, you're not going to give me the celebration that I deserve. Okay. And I'm moving on to the next person. And I will keep moving on until I find somebody that's willing to celebrate with me, right? Even if it's just 5 minutes, right? Just because we shouldn't need that, but we're human and we do need it every now and then. So keep going until you find the person that's going to sit down and have a beer with you to celebrate. Okay. The other thing that I am being shown for you is the other thing that I'm being shown for you is okay. I'm not exactly sure what this is, so I'm just going to blurt out what I know, okay? And just put it in these terms. I see a trip that you don't want to make, and in all honesty, you shouldn't make, if that makes sense. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what this trip is about. I get that it's really difficult for you to make the decision to take the trip for whatever reason. But it's like your responsibility to this person is forcing you to take this trip. But I think this time, let me just put it this way, okay? My advice is if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Plain and simple. It doesn't matter if you're picking up on something negative about it. It doesn't matter if you just plain old don't want to get in the car and make this trip, okay? The bottom line is that there's something off about it and you're picking up something off about it. There's a reason why. Okay. And we're going to leave it at that. So that is what I have for you, Jenny. Moving on to Linda, Virgo. It's all about Virgos this week, or at least it continues to be all about Virgos this week. Virgo is focused on self. For you, that is very interesting. I don't see you as being somebody that's focused on themselves unless it's how to better yourself, how to make more money for yourself, be a better leader, whatever, kind of a thing. Ceres continues that influence on Virgo as well. So we're continuing that nurturing influence on ourselves, specifically self-care. I think that pardon me. We've had this self-care conversation. I don't know how many times. Or maybe we've only had it a few times and I've just had this self-care conversation with a lot of people because that's probably true too. But I'm pretty sure that we've had this self-care conversation several times. And it's not just about beating yourself and making sure you're showered in the morning and things like that. Ceres influence is about nurturing yourself, mothering yourself in some way, and kind of sort of it's asking you, what are you doing to nurture yourself? But it's also asking, what are you doing to nurture your goals as well? I think that you are the type of person that always approaches everything logically. I know it's so anti-Virgo of you. Actually, that's not true. Virgos are like that. They don't approach things emotionally. They approach it logically, in a way that makes sense, right? Things like self-care, therefore, seem to fall by the wayside because when it comes down to time, are you going to utilize that time to make money? Or are you going to utilize that time for something else? So I feel like it's even more necessary than it ever was before to make sure that self-care is a priority. And I feel like this week, you're really going to feel that because your body is going to tell you that you've overdone it or you are about to overdo it, if that makes sense. When my body feels like that, I listen. In the past, when I did not listen, I got sick and was forced to listen. So let's not do that. Okay. Let's just completely and totally avoid that as much as we possibly can. I also want to say that if there are some medical things, doctor appointments that you haven't been able to get to, or what have tests that you have been meaning to take that you just haven't done, that is also something that needs to be on your schedule sooner rather than later. Very important that you make sure that things are okay. Don't take for granted that they are, because you don't have time for them not to be. All right. That's really not a good way of looking at it. The other thing is that I feel like boundaries are really important in terms of self-care. There's a couple of people, these are work people, or people that you associate with on a business level, that don't have very good boundaries, and you're good at laying down boundaries, not necessarily great at maintaining those boundaries, and that's really important. You have to be consistent with people, because they will do whatever they possibly can to get around your boundaries, and that's not healthy for you or for them. So there's one person in particular, but there may be two. Once you understand who these people are, you'll know you have to be firm on your boundaries. That means you don't work after 7 o'clock at night. That means you don't take on responsibilities that don't belong to you. You have to be really, really firm with those boundaries. And I just feel like over time, because you've got so much going on, it's just easier to do what they needed rather than being consistent with those boundaries. So get back on track with that. The last thing that I have for you is, okay, I am literally visualizing you at a piano, playing a piano, just sitting there and playing this piano. I don't know if you know how to play the piano or not. That's neither here nor there. This is all about creative flow. And this stopping to just sit and play and listen to the music is very meditative, and it helps with the creative flow. And I feel like there's been almost like a blockage to your creative flow recently, and that has everything to do with the fact that you, again, it's all about mind organization, and not just allowing your femininity or your creativity to take over. It could be there's probably a reason for that, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, I don't care what your reason or your excuse is for it. The creative juices have to be able to flow in order for you to create what you want to create. We'll just put it that way. And too much intellect is trying to control it in a way that's not going to work. So that's what I have for you, Linda. Moving on to Matalyn. Virgo is focused on self. Some people would say, of course they are. I don't think that that's necessarily true for every Virgo, although I have met some pretty narcissistic Virgos. Okay. Ask your parents about Stag. All right. That guy was awful. Like the epitome of the most narcissistic Virgo I've ever met in my entire life. What a piece of shit that guy was. That's not you. And we're not talking about that. Although, if you start to act like that, I'm going to come talk to you about it. So make sure you don't do that. Okay. Virgo, it is great to be focused on self. It is great to be focused on self-care. And we continue to have series with her nurturing influence into your self-care, which is good too. But in the horoscopes, I talked about balance, specifically Virgo balance. Balance is really a word that's used with Libras more than it's used with Virgos, but every sign needs to be balanced in some way. it has to be a balance between the energy that you're putting into you and the energy that you're putting into others. If you're putting too much energy into you, that's selfish. If you're putting too much energy in others, that is basically self-sacrifice. Self-care lives in the middle of these two. Okay. And yes, it is possible that somebody might say you're being selfish if they want you to do something that day and you decide you don't want to do that. You want to do something else, something that's more productive for you, rather than what they need. That can be interpreted as being selfish. And maybe it is. But maybe your body really needs the rest. And so in this case, being selfish is actually a good thing, because if you're not being selfish, then you're sacrificing what little energy you have for somebody else. And that doesn't always work out very well either. Even the best people in the world will take advantage of your energy. It is what it is. Is not to say that they're bad people. But let's talk about your parents, okay? And this is very common in most people. Parents will use the fact that I always, okay, anytime I want Daniel to do something, I do this. I do it. Anytime I want Daniel to do something, I go, excuse me, but I can't walk right anymore because your big ass head broke me in half, right? And then he's like, of course, you're going to bring that up, that I broke you. And now because I broke you, I've spent my whole entire life doing everything you want me to do, right? Is it wrong? Probably. Honestly, yeah, it's probably wrong. I probably shouldn't do it. I keep doing it, but I probably shouldn't do it because it's not his fault that his head was so big that he broke me, or that it was in the wrong spot and he broke me. It's really not his fault. Okay. Honestly, it's my fault for getting knocked up in the first place. So I probably shouldn't do that anymore, but parents do that all the time. And the whole, I'm your mother, so you should do what I want. I'm your father, so you should do what I want. I had to deal with that my whole entire life, right? The point is that yes, honoring your parents, you should, especially if you had good parents, and you did. I happen to know that you did have good parents, but you can't let them use that against you either, because that's not okay either. And growing up, it's actually amazing that I do that to Daniel, because growing up, I didn't like it when it was done to me. So that is kind of the thing that always happens. We swear we're never going to be our parents, and then it turns out that we are our parents when we become parents. It just happens. So I do feel that self-care is a big deal this week, and that it is possible that in terms of needing that time to yourself, somebody else may need some time for you, and you're going to have to make a tough decision. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to explain why you need the time. You just do. And that's okay. If you can help them out for an hour and take the rest of the day, then more power to you. You're still getting what you need and they get what they need. And that works out. But in terms of anybody guilting you into it, and no, I don't see your parents being the ones that do it. Anybody guilt tripping you into something that you don't want to do is an absolute red flag. You definitely do not want to deal with that. In fact, honestly, my contact lens is moving all of a sudden. Honestly, that's usually a trigger for me. Like, I get really pissed off. Okay. And I feel that that could be something that comes up with you as well. So try not to get pissed off. It's important that you lay down strong boundaries, not that you fight with somebody, if that makes sense. The other thing that it's really funny, because last week in your mom's horoscope, I was seeing this kitten. And I think you're the one that's going to bring home that kitten, actually, because I'm seeing it again. This could be also, though, that it's not an actual physical cat. This is like a little It looks like a little snow leopard, but it's a little kitten. So it's like white with the black spots. And I've never actually seen a cat that looks like that. I mean, not like that, like a Dalmatian kitten. Um, this also could be a like a spirit guide for you, or that somebody around you in spirit is coming through with this little stuffed white leopard toy or something like that. Think about if you had something like that, or if somebody in your past had something like that. The reason why it's interesting that this is lining up you and your mother is I feel like there is, I mean, you definitely share some guides. That's a given. Um, because you have the same family members, obviously, so your grandma, your great grandparents and such. But I also feel that it's almost like a parallel, like the two of you are going through a lesson together. I'm not sure what that lesson is. And it's not to say that you have to make the motions of going through the lesson in the exact same way. You're actually learning the lesson in two different ways, if that makes sense. So I'm not exactly sure what that. Okay, yes, I am. Okay. I'm just going to say this, okay? And I'm not pointing the finger at your mom. I'm not pointing the finger at you. And I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. I'm just going to say it this way, okay? Just because getting high isn't destructive to the people around you doesn't mean that it's not destructive to you, okay? I'm not saying don't smoke marijuana. I am, obviously I would be a huge hypocrite if I said that. What I am saying is that it's really easy to decide to do that and not be productive doing something else. So it's destructive to you, and it is in a form destructive to other people. Comparing it to what your mom has been doing with her drinking is you're doing the same thing she does. You're justifying it, and that's not helping you. Okay. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And that is what I have for you, darling. I hope that helps. And I am going to move on to Theresa. We have nothing going on in Libra this week, which is not a bad thing at all. Focus is on the past. And when I was doing the horoscopes, actually, I was thinking of you because specifically, focus on the past can be good or bad. Focusing on the past in terms of seeing where you came from versus where you are now is a very positive thing because it helps you to see how far you've come. It helps you to identify where you need to go from here in case you're not where you want to be. There's a lot of good things about it, but you get tripped up with memories. Your son being one of them, Scott being one of them, not knowing your dad growing up, other memories of other people that were in your life that are no longer in your life. These types of things, it makes it really difficult to look at the past and how you evolved. It makes it really difficult to do that because you get distracted by all the not so great stuff and the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. I think that's the thing that trips us up the most is we get caught up and stuck on if only I had done this and if only I had done that. And the truth is that everybody has their lesson to learn, and we don't get to interfere with that, even if our intentions are good. So, with that being said, it is a good, well, let me put it this way. Looking at what happened to your son, what happened to Scott, makes things difficult. Looking at what you did for them to help them while they were here is a much better use of your time. It can very easily go to, but I didn't do enough. But you're not Wonder Woman. And contrary to popular belief, nobody asked you to be Wonder Woman either. So we all kind of put that on ourselves, especially us women. We have to be perfect. We have to do absolutely everything. We have to prevent these horrible things from happening. We can't. It terrifies me to no end that I have no control over what's going to happen to my children, but I don't have any control over what's going to happen to my children. The only thing that I can do is do the best that I can every day that I'm here doing it, if that makes sense. That's one thing that's coming up. And the other thing is, I feel like old shit is going to come up for you this week. And when I say old shit, I'm talking about stuff that you're kind of like, I thought we were done with this. Why are we still harping on it? Kind of a thing, which is very frustrating. And it's almost like somebody that you really don't it's like somebody that you really don't really have time for to go over this crap again. And I'm laughing because I'm visualizing a specific person. And that specific person is not related to you, but related to your family in some way. Maybe by alluding to it, you'll understand who I'm talking about here. But that's the kind of energy it feels like. It feels like somebody else who can't get their shit together, putting all that on you when it's not yours. Okay. And while as frustrating as that is, don't take their bullshit. Period. Don't take their bullshit. It's not yours. Even if they try to hand it to you, it doesn't mean that you have to take it. Okay. Bottom line, you have your issues. I have my issues. This is an issue that we should be over by now. And the fact that we're not is not my problem, it's yours. And just kind of leave it there, if that makes sense. I know you want to try and help people. Although this one, I think you may have tried to wash your hands of this one. She makes it very difficult to do so, but obviously I'm not talking about your daughter or your mother. Keep going. Right? Like I said, not your family, but they are related to your family. Okay. Yeah, they cause their own problems. You have nothing to do with that. And if they are lashing out at you out of their own frustration, you don't have to take that responsibility because it's not yours. Okay. That's what I have for you, Theresa. Moving on to Regina, focus is on the mind and how you think. And there's no planets to influence that, which is, well, it is what it is. But that actually makes things a little bit easier when there's no planets influencing that. In terms of focus on how you think, being a Scorpio, I would go out on a limb to say that you may think of things in an emotional way. Okay. And I feel like this week that is more prevalent than it usually is, because I even though there's no planets in Scorpio, there's a lot of planets creating some pretty big challenges for other people. And what that means is that you may be an innocent bystander in that and have to deal with somebody who may be putting their problems in your lap. And it is very important that you don't take on those problems and use them as an emotionally mental whip to whip yourself with. These are their problems. You have your own set of problems. We all have our own set of problems. There's no need to take on anybody else's. Okay. I really specifically see this at work, but I see it at home with your partner as well. Like, this is just the fad. Like, this is just the thing. Everybody's going to drop the crap in Regina's lap this week. You don't have to let that happen. By the way, you could say, no. Remember that word we talked about? No, this isn't my shit. You take it and you throw it away, or you put it away in the closet, or you do whatever you're going to do. And so it seems to sort of come to a head, and I feel like it's going to come to a head like right in the middle of the week, because this big aspect that is taking place that has nothing to do with Scorpio, the moon moves into that aspect and makes this challenge a lot more emotional. So it's you having to deal with other people's problems, not being directly involved in the problem. So don't take on the problem if it's not yours. That's number one. Number two is I want to say that that you've been racing about something. And what I mean by racing is worrying about something, and you keep flipping it and you keep flipping it and you keep flipping it over and over and over in your mind. If you take it out of your head and write it down, first of all, it loses some power. It doesn't seem quite as big of a deal as it is when it's in here. I can be having this major problem, and as soon as I start talking about it, even my own head is like, this is really not as big of a deal as I made it out to be in here. So it helps, but it also takes it out of the hamster wheel. So you're not in the hamster wheel, right? And every time you do this, you open up an opportunity to provide a solution to the problem, if there is a solution to the problem, rather than just holding it and worrying about it, if that makes sense. And worrying about things doesn't do any good at all. Okay. So number one, you can worry about it all day. It ain't going to fix the problem, right? All it does is zap our energy that we need for other things. And one of those things I'm being shown, you have some plans or some projects or some things that you want to do, and you never have any time. And I keep hearing you say it's always work, it's always this, always somebody, blah, 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 blah. You got to make time, because if you don't make time, it's not getting done, period. So that's what I have for you, Regina. Moving on to Theresa Sheppard. No planets in Scorpio this week. Focus is on your mind, how you think. Or I would say perception, actually. Perception is a really good word for that. And I feel two things coming up for you. One, changing your perception on something is definitely going to be helpful in this particular instance. What instance am I talking about? I really could not tell you. I do feel this has to do with work. I feel that this is something that normally has a negative, there's a negative feeling surrounding it. So to me, that means that it's a client that you can't stand dealing with, or a specific person that's very difficult to deal with, or specific classes that you have to take, certifications that are, my husband's in the middle of the 30-hour OSHA thing. I mean, oh my God, that just drags on forever. So I can understand some of those can be difficult, I guess, in terms of recertifying and such. But I feel like changing your perception of this normally gruesome task is what I'll call it, because I don't see this as being something that you just all of a sudden started doing. This is a normal thing. It just feels like, oh God, I have to do this again. I hate doing this again. Now, if you approach the situation like that, it is just going to be miserable and grueling the entire time. And I know you like to just get in there and get it done. And if you have a more healthy mindset about it, it will help you to just get in there and get it done, if that makes sense. This also could be something along the lines of like the yearly mammogram or the pap smear or something like that, So It doesn't have to be, something that completely and totally rules your life. It just could be one of those annoying things that we just have to do every now and then. So with a negative perception, you're going to put it off, and it's better if you just get it done. Then you don't have to worry about it anymore. You can move on. The other thing that I'm being shown is I actually see a pretty quiet week for you this week, which is good because you have time to do whatever whatever that is that needs to be done. And that also means that you can't use that as an excuse, unfortunately. Sorry, I don't have time. That's never pleasant. But I do see this as a pretty quiet week. Not that you're not traveling, not that you're not working, just not as much. In fact, I see you being able to spend more time home this week than traveling this week, which is kind of good. Not that traveling is a problem in terms of what's going on with the planets. I just think you need a break. Like, you really just need time to unplug from the world and just be Theresa by yourself, and and have that quiet space, because you have been really longing for quiet lately. And while you may not be able to get that like the whole time you're home, there's multiple opportunities for you to have that space, if that makes sense. What is really important is that you manage the distractions around you, the things that would frustrate you, the things that would irritate you, and, kind of let them bounce off of your bubble so that you can relax. But that relaxation is really important. I am getting some anxiety or pains in the chest, which I am interpreting as coming from anxiety, because I'm not being shown anything else. Obviously, if you're having pains in the chest, get that looked at. But anxiety can feel like a heart attack. I don't want to tell you that it is anxiety and you don't go and get it checked and it turns out to be a heart problem. Okay. But I'm not being shown a heart problem. So I don't want to worry you either. I look at it as, if these things are happening, go and get it looked at, just to be on the safe side. But I am seeing it's like a panicky feeling coming from you around something, and I feel that this something is at home, and it is also something that is completely out of your control, which is why you're panicking about it. So that's also part of the reason why it's really important for you to spend some quiet time at home, so that you can deal with that and or work through that, if that makes sense, and be able to recover from it as well, if it's something that you need to recover from. We'll put it that way. That's what I have for you, Theresa. I'm going to move on to Jillian. See, I've been really good about not forgetting you in this video for like the last several weeks. I hope you're paying attention. Anyways, no planets in Scorpio this week, which is really good. Focus is on the mind and how you think. And Scorpio being an emotional sign, I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that you are an emotional thinker. Most Scorpios are. But Scorpios are also highly intuitive. In fact, the sign of Scorpio is the sign of intuition. Funny, the ruling planet of intuition is actually Pisces planet and not Scorpio's planet, but I guess that doesn't matter, does it? I feel like what is important about this for you this week is, first of all, I've always known that you were an intuitive child. I've always known that you can communicate with spirit if you chose to. Even when you were little, you would say these things that were brilliant, that no child your age should be able to comprehend in that sort of mature way, if that makes sense. So I've always known you were intuitive. I've always known that you felt things that you didn't understand from other people, and that those things can confuse you. And of course, learning how to use that is definitely a good idea. But I also feel that because you have dealt with what you've dealt with in your life, and you do have some mental health issues that you are battling. I almost said mental issues, and that was not the way I wanted to go. Mental health issues that you are working with. One of the biggest things I feel that plays into that is emotional thinking, which is not uncommon for an individual that's gone through the bullshit that you've gone through, if that makes sense. I'm not going to get into specifics on a public platform like this. You already know what the specifics are, so I don't have to get into that anyways. What I will say is that there comes a time where it is your choice to be an emotional thinker or a logical thinker, or to balance those two things out. You need emotions for intuition. You need logic for intuition. Intuition comes through as a thought in your brain, but it also comes through in terms of feeling energies and feeling the energies around you, kind of a thing. So if you are emotionally thinking about something, which means you are stuck in a loop that you can't get out of, that blocks your intuition from coming through, and it is blocking your father trying to talk to you also, which he says that is exactly what's happening. And he's kind of standing like this, like, why would you shut the door on me? He's like really gruff and mad about it, but he's trying really hard not to smile, because he knows that that he ain't fooling anybody, right? So bottom line is that if you want to open up the communication to him, you have to learn to use your brain accordingly. And when your brain is beating you up, which means your brain is sitting there telling you you're not good enough and nobody loves you, and all the other things that it can come up with that are not good, it's blocking your dad from coming through and saying, hey, that's not true. There's a lot of people that love you. You're better than a lot of people. You are more than good enough. And he's trying to tell you this, but it's like he can't get through, if that makes sense. It is not easy to clear your mind of that bullshit, but I can help you with it if that's something that you choose to work on. And I know other people that can help you with that as well. The other thing that's coming up is I keep seeing this, little dog dancing around, but there's something wrong with the foot. It's like, and it's the front right one. And it's like you're watching the dog, and you can see that they're not stepping right. Or they're not stepping the way that they should. They're what's the word I'm looking for? They're favoring this foot, but not in a good way, if that makes sense. So it's definitely take a look at that. There could be, a foxtail, or, God knows what, could be in their foot. I don't see it. I don't see like a broken foot, but but it is, the reason why it's coming up is because it's something that should be addressed sooner rather than later, right? Because obviously if there's like a foxtail in there and it stays in there too long, it becomes infected. We want to avoid that. There may even be a little bit of a irritation that could turn into an infection. So cleaning it really good with peroxide or whatever is definitely going to help with that. They're not going to lose the foot or anything like that. And the last thing that I'm being shown for you. This is the words that's coming to me. Whatever happened to school? Are you still going to school? That's not coming from me. It is coming from your dad. Whatever happened to school? I kind of get, you've been going back and forth on it, like you're thinking about it and then kind of go, but it's I just said this to somebody else in this video about your age, maybe a little bit younger. Okay. I am not going to be a giant hypocrite and sit here and tell you that smoking pot is unmotivating and not good for you. Okay. being that I have been doing it since before you were born, that would make me a hypocrite. What I do know, okay, what I do know is that it is very easy to spend all of your time doing that and you're not getting anything productive done. And going to school is going to cut into that getting high time. That makes sense. And it is going to. And no, it's not always a thing where you can get high before you go to school. That affects your ability to learn, right? Unless it helps your ability to learn, in which case, by all means, go for it. I mean, some people learn better when they're high. That's perfectly fine. The point is that you don't want marijuana to ruin your life, and it can. Okay, it absolutely can. There are people who are motivated people when they get high. I've been smoking pot for 30 years. I can do pretty much anything on it at this point, unless it's very late in the day or very potent weed, in which case I'm not doing nothing. Okay. In fact, I'm not going to lie, I smoked this morning. I still got all my stuff done that I needed to get done today, or I'm almost done, right? But I only smoked a little bit, right? Just to entertain myself while I put my makeup on, which is what I do in the mornings before I record my videos. By the time I get to recording, it's gone, right? And it's no longer affecting me, so I can do what I need to do. But there's those days where I have stuff to do and I go just a little wake and bake in the morning, and that really is a killer for the rest of the day because I'm unmotivated for the rest of the day. Now, there's people like your Uncle Dave who just started smoking when he got the finger thing, right? And he can't get nothing done. Absolutely nothing. He's been forgetful ever since. Like, he's not a good pot smoker. It's not good for him. He doesn't get more shit done. He gets nothing done because that's how it affects him. So you don't want it. You're 21, almost 21. Okay. The issue with being a habitual smoker at 21 is that chances are you're going to burn out by the time you're 30, and you have all this time afterwards that you need to fill with something. So all I'm saying is that you don't want it to become a curse, and you may be on the road to it becoming a curse for you, and you definitely don't want that. So think about that. If it's not getting in your way, if you can still perfectly function, that's fine. Just make sure that it's not getting in the way of you being productive. Okay. Off of my soapbox now. That's what I have for you, darling. Moving on to Sheri. So we are kicking off the week in a full moon still, because there was a full moon at the end of last week. And we're going to kick off this week still in a full moon, which means that the moon is still in opposition with the sun and squared with Neptune. So, well, it's not Virgo, so it's not like it's affecting your whole family. That's good. Well, it kind of is. I mean, you bring Tony into it, I guess, because the sun is in Gemini in opposition with the moon, of course, which is in Sagittarius for that one day on Sunday. And the moon is squared with Neptune, which is in Pisces. And at this time, focused on finances and relationships, which is specifically your relationship with your finances. This also is very interesting because Sagittarius's focus is on home, the sun's focus is on career. Now, we all know the Sheri get a job joke, okay? And my ear is bleeding and all that stuff. And I know that I just feel like this is going to come up again where, maybe you might need to work outside the home, but you are doing that in terms of taking care of your dad, right? And of course, you don't want to go out because you don't want to bring anything back to him. I get it. But this argument comes up every few years. And with everything that's going on, I think that you're going to get it again here pretty soon. At least I feel that this is a lot of what this argument is about. two things that come out of this, or two things that I'm being shown from this. One, I've talked before in your reading about there's so many different ways to make money these days. It's unreal. Okay. Including work from home opportunities that people do. You have obviously, with what you're doing right now, you can go and help other people. You can go and help take care of other people. So you can expand in what you're already doing, basically. There's the Lyft, there's the Grubhub, there's a million things that you can do now to make money that didn't exist 20 years ago when your ear was bleeding. Specifically when your ear was bleeding. It doesn't have to be a job like that, basically. In fact, that job that you had, this is what's coming to me. I think your mom has something to do with this, by the way, where you were cleaning offices. That was a great job for you. You didn't hate it. It was pretty easy. You went in, you did what you had to do, you collected your paycheck. Money was not a problem at that time. And so, not to say that you have to take on extra responsibility because Matt can't, but it might get to a point where you need to take on a little extra responsibility because Matt can't, if that makes sense. And I'm saying this because it is possible where he's sitting here stuck in limbo over here. He may not be getting paid, but he's still needed. And there's really no way around that. And because of the fact that what he's doing for his parents, I'm not saying it's more important than what you're doing for your dad, but there's more work involved for him than there is for you. So all I'm saying is, I'm throwing that out there. It is a possibility. Do you want to do it? That's a whole different conversation. Okay. I get it. I wouldn't want to do it either. But, if you can find something that's like that evening job where you just spent a couple of hours cleaning offices, it's something that you're already doing, in a way. And it's just going to bring in just a little bit extra. And I think that little bit extra is going to become more and more and more important. Okay. So you've been hoping that other things would fall into place and they're not. And so waiting for other people to make their decisions isn't going to work. I feel like you may be put in the position to do something about it. Then again, it may feel like that on Sunday. And by Monday, when the moon moves out of there, it don't feel like that anymore. It's almost like a panicky feeling that goes away, but it's going to come back because it's come back so many times before. So yeah, anyways, once the moon moves out of there really isn't a whole lot of planet activity going on in Sagittarius, which is good. Everybody else is dealing with the problem. You get to sit on the sidelines and watch. So that's kind of nice. What's actually really nice is that none of these major aspects are affecting anybody in your family, maybe your dad, because Capricorn is involved a little bit. But I'm talking about, Matt's not involved in this major challenge. Maddie's not involved in this major challenge. So it's pretty nice for you guys. You may be dealing with other people that are in the middle of it, but it's not directly affecting you, if that makes sense. The other thing that I am picking up on is I keep seeing your brother, the oldest one, Tony. I keep seeing Tony. And I keep hearing you need to get to the bottom of this. I don't know what that means. It could be something that he's going through that he's not telling anybody. It could be the difficulties that you've been dealing with him already. It's very specific that you need to get to the bottom of this. not somebody else. And I think that you need to get to the bottom of this because you're his sister. I think that being that your mom isn't here for him, you're the next best thing. And I feel like in some cases, your brothers will rely on you and put you in that space a little bit more often than they used to, because you're the only one that's here to be able to do that. But I think that when it comes down to it, if something is up with him or bothering him, or he's lashing out in a way that's maybe not appropriate or helpful in any way, it's you that he's going to listen to more than anybody else. So I kind of see him taking a very prominent role this week, or a very, very prominent focus. The last thing that I have for you this week is papers. Your mom's like, oh my God, go through that stack of papers. And I don't think it's in your house either. I think this is a big old stack of papers that you left on her desk. And she's like, oh my God, get that off my. Will you do something with those papers? I'm just going to leave you with that. And that's what I have for you this week. Moving on to Peg, we only have planet activity right at the beginning of the week as we continue to have a full moon in Sagittarius on Sunday. We ended the week with the full moon in Sagittarius. This is the second day of the full moon in Sagittarius, so the moon is still in opposition with the sun, as well as squared with Neptune, which is focused on your relationship with your finances. The sun's focus is on career. The moon's focus is on home. Couple of things that come out of that for me. One, I do see an opportunity, and I think we were talking about opportunities coming up, possibly coming up last week as well. I see an opportunity that financially looks great. Definitely useful to bring in more money into the household. But everything inside of you is saying absolutely not. I don't want to do this. And whether it's a good idea or not, I don't feel you should do it. If you feel that strongly about it, intuitively, you feel that strongly about it, I don't think that you should do it. I know you're going to struggle with, I shouldn't let my personal feelings get in the way, but I also feel like you're intuitively picking up on the situation turning out identical to other situations that didn't work out, or there's something about the person that you just don't trust. There's something up there, and you're absolutely spot on in your intuition. If everything inside of you says don't do this, don't do it. If this is not your decision but your husband's, well, that just adds another interesting layer to it, doesn't it? Because, of course, they're not required to listen to us. In fact, half the time they don't. Obviously, being who we are and having the abilities that we do does not guarantee that people are going to listen, right? So if this is involving your husband and not you, the only thing that you can do is calmly, okay? I know you would communicate calmly. I tend to communicate in a very direct way. But calmly communicate to your husband your concerns and what you're picking up, and help him to understand what to look for that could be considered a red flag, and then let him do it. Okay, it is his lesson. I know how frustrating that can be, but I think with the right information, if you give him the information in the right way, he will go in there with an open mind, knowing what to look for. That might be a problem. The other thing that's coming up this week, I feel, is again this being outside energy. I want to say there's not a whole lot of nature around you. I mean, like, obviously you can leave your building and go outside, but it doesn't feel like nature. It's like, to me, being in the Bay Area, nature is that little patch of grass over there, or those wildflowers along the side of the road that I get to see every now and then. But like, just this expanse of nature and no people around me, you don't get that out here. And I feel um like that's something that you've been dealing with a lot lately. And so taking the time, even to just take a little drive to some place where you can spend some quiet time in nature, is really important, because it grounds you in a way, and it especially if you do it on the weekend, it sort of clears you to be ready for the week ahead, if that makes sense. The last thing that I have for you is I keep getting the word cheater. I don't think this is you cheating, okay, in terms of cheating on your diet or cheating on your taxes or cheating on your husband. This is somebody else. Somebody is a cheater. And no, it's not your husband, okay? Um, but I will say, and I don't think this is cheating on a person, okay, in terms of sexually. That's not what I'm picking at. It's somebody is cheating. I don't know who it is. I don't know how they're cheating. It could be another person that you're working with that says that they're a medium and they're not, they're cheating. I don't know. Keep that under your hat, because it will reveal itself when it's supposed to reveal itself. So that's what I have for you this week. Moving on to Mama Sheri, we're kicking off the week with a full moon, because we ended the week with a full moon last week. So we're kicking off this week with the second day of the full moon, which means the moon is in opposition with the sun. The moon's focus is on home, sun's focus is on career. Moon is squared with Neptune, which is focused on your relationship to your finances. So this is interesting. Number one, you work from home. Okay. So your career is at home. And I feel like a lot of what this aspect is coming together and saying is that the situation that you're in financially, you can make some more money, but you're capped at how much money you can make, because of course you're doing the Social Security thing and you don't want to lose that, right? So it forces you to put boundaries on how much you can, quote unquote, make. And if you think that by getting paid in PayPal that they won't know, that changed at the beginning of this year. Just so you're aware, PayPal now is required to report how much money you made to the IRS, which of course the IRS knows, the Social Security office will know fairly closely after that. So yes, you do have to be a little bit careful, but you don't want to be too careful also. Let me put it to you this way. You can retire if you want to, or you can keep going. And I don't feel that you are ready to retire. You're definitely old enough to retire if you want, but I don't think you want to. And it's not because of your finances either. I don't think you want to stop working in some way. And I know that you've been doing a lot more classes and you've been taking a lot more clients, which is good, but you want to be aware that you're not putting boundaries on yourself for other reasons outside of, you need to put boundaries on your making sure that you're not using up your energy on your clients and you don't have any left for yourself, right? Treat it like you used to work at Walmart, basically. And don't put the cap on it, because energetically that is getting in the way of your flow of business, if that makes sense. Number one, that's number one. Number two, like I'm seeing one of those weird Dr. Seuss birds that have the big hair thing going on. I know that there's actual birds like that, but it is Dr. Seuss. One fish, two fish, red fish, red fish, blue fish. Let me put it to you this way, okay? The Dr. Seuss stories don't make any sense at all. And I feel like you're going to come across somebody who is like that. They just literally don't make any sense at all. And it's not that you can't help them. You're just not the right person for them. You're not the right kind of help that they need. Don't feel bad about that. Okay. And I'm not saying this because they look like this bird. I'm saying this because it sort of gives you that I don't there's a reason why children love Dr. Seuss books because it rhymes, right? But as an adult, you read it and it's like, this doesn't make any sense at all, right? If it doesn't resonate with you, it's not supposed to. So don't take that on as you doing something wrong because you're not getting it, if that makes sense, okay? Or you're not getting them. That's you know that you're not the person that's qualified to help them. We'll put it that way. The last thing that I have for you. What's up with the fishies, 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 fishies? Um, the only thing I can think of is Pisces, dealing with a bunch of Pisces, which I'm sorry for you, because that can be difficult, but I don't think that's what it is. It could be there's other fish in the sea, but that doesn't really resonate either. I'm gonna leave it. I have no clue, and they're not elaborating. So if you understand what that means, great. If not, I wouldn't worry too much about it. And that's what I have for you. And finally, moving on to Alyssa, we have, well, we continue to have Saturn and Neptune being the little bookends in Pisces there. One's at the beginning and one's at the end. And with all of the craziness that is going on, these two planets actually are really lining up with mainly helpful aspects and not a lot of big challenges. There's one little challenge at the beginning of the week that kind of goes away by the end of the week, in terms of a square between Saturn and the Sun. Saturn's focus is on relationships. The Sun's focus is on your career. This kind of gives, I feel that this challenge sort of feels like there is somebody around you that may not understand your career goals, and so therefore they're not 100% supportive of them. It's almost like they're calling you to be more responsible than you are being, which is not true. You are very responsible, but the way they word it kind of makes you feel like they're accusing you of being irresponsible in a way. So this is more their problem, not yours. I know it's hard not to take it on as your problem, but you got to remind yourself this is their problem and not yours. You know what you're capable of doing, and as long as you do that, you'll be successful. If you waste time and do nothing, you won't be successful. It's very black and white that way. Neptune is in a grand sextile with who? Because it's over by the end of the week, that's why. Or no, actually, it's not. Okay. Yeah, Neptune is in a grand sextile with Pluto and Mercury. Now, Pluto is part of this really big challenge that a lot of people are dealing with. Not you, but a lot of people are dealing with. You are interacting with Pluto in a much more favorable way, which is good. And the moon moves into this aspect about Tuesday, Wednesday, and just adds a little bit more oomph to it, if that makes sense, in a good way. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is literally my last to the recording, and then I'm done. And I managed to make it through the last 3 hours without yawning. So I'm I did good. Okay. I'm sorry. Sorry I interrupted your reading though. Neptune's focus is on relationships, specifically our financial, our relationship to our money. And Pluto's focus is on those you love. Mercury's focus is on your long-term goals. So we're specifically talking about your long-term financial goals. And you do have people in your corner to help you put together those financial goals that will support you also in your career goals as well. But I feel that this week is a really good opportunity for you to build a financial plan. And here's why. I didn't do that when I was young. So I am twice as old as you are, and I still don't have a retirement plan going on. That needs to be fixed, like ASAP. Because I've only got 20 years to do it. The other thing is, if you want to build a business, you need a financial plan. Otherwise, you never get to where you want to be because you haven't established where you want to be. So coming up with a financial plan now, even if it's a 6-month financial plan, is very helpful. It puts you on the track that you want to be in, if that makes sense. And this aspect is sort of coming together to help you do that, sort of clearing space to help you do that, if that makes sense. The last thing that I'm being shown is I feel like there's an element of somebody from the past coming up. And on one hand, it might be, you're hoping that it's a good thing, and then it turns out to not be the greatest thing in the world. I kind of get the feeling with this that you are sort of hoping that things work out, but you know that they're not going to. And by the end of the time that you have with them, you're gonna know that it's just not worth your time or your energy to continue to pursue this as a relationship with this person. I want to say this is female, so I'm not saying that it is a love relationship. I mean, well, it could be. If you want to swing that way, that's fine. I have no qualms about that. But I feel that this is more like the cousin that you had or the friend that you had. It's like you'll reconnect with them, but you can also see the red flags that you're going to end up exactly the way you were before. And that gives you the opportunity to decide whether you want to pursue the relationship and see if there's a change, or if you want to just go ahead and decide that you don't want to do that again and walk away from it. So it's entirely up to you, of course. I know what I would do, but this is not my lesson, it's yours. Okay. So that's what I have for you. And that's what I have for everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out this week with the readings. If you are not on this list, you're probably not watching. But if you are and you're not on this list, it's really easy to get on the list. Click the link below. And you could be on this list for as little as $10 a month. Again, I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Make it a great week, everybody.